All right, we are live. Excuse me. We're just very happy. We just finished the game, the first game of the 2020 PBA Philippine Cup again with Ginebra versus Talking Tex, and it was a thriller. And we're all excited about it. The boys are here, and we're excited about it. Again, as always, I'm joined by my friends Val and Bert. Guys, what do we think? Game one. Game one. Oh my gosh. So what's I don't know, where do you guys want to start? Early impressions. Early impressions right now. The game just finished a couple minutes ago. What do you think of the game? Was it as you expected, or is it not what you expected? So let's start with you, Val. Val, what do you think?
Well, this is going to be a fun series. I'm expecting this one to be close to 6 or 7. This series will go 6 or 7 games. Teams are evenly matched. I like the adjustments that the coaches are making, so it's interesting. I'm expecting Talk and Text to make the adjustments, and also Ginebra to pounce on the weakness of Talk and Text. But this is a fun series. That was a fun game. I would expect more from these teams for the next few games.
All right. Okay. Val, we'll go back to you. Bert, what do you think?
I don't know if you guys just saw what I tried to show you. Like they just showed the
Let me put you on
the game
speaker.
stats. Oh wait, can you guys hear me?
No, I can. Yep. Well, we can hear good. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying. I don't know if you guys saw what I tried to show you. They just showed like the stats of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The Gin Kings out rebounded Duck and Tex by more than 20.
Wow. That was ridiculous. That was ridiculous.
But there were sequences where they had a lot of offensive rebounds and that gave them a lot of chances. Anyway, to your back to your question. You know how we always try to make fun of the PBA from time to time because of how some games seem like they don't live up to our expectations, and we tend to be critical, especially if it's a sister team playing against another sister team or like the same owner. But this is one of those rare times where you have the two best teams before the season started playing in the finals, and you can really see just based on the first game that they're playing their hearts out, and this is going to be a great series. To Val's point earlier, at least 6 games. Not being sarcastic just because it's the PBA, but it's definitely going to be at least 6 games.
Winner take all these.
I'm not even going to expound what that means, Beaver. I know some of the people that are watching this know what that means, but let's go first with we never got to do a podcast before the series started. Before game one started earlier today, who were you guys favoring? I was leaning. I was talking to Beaver earlier today. I said I was leaning towards TNT, although I want Ginebra to win because I want Pringle to win the title. So when this game turned out the way it did, I wish the series would be like this, and I wish it goes 7 for a change. It's a series that I want to go 7, not. Okay, I'll stop there. Go on, Val. Who were you favoring before the start of the series?
I was rooting for Talk and Text to win. Not Weston. I'm still rooting for Talk and Text to win. They had a very difficult series against the Calvin of Mr. Right, Big Perk semifinals. So they're tested. But I was before the game. I told you guys that I didn't expect a good game from both teams because they just played sudden death last Friday, and less than 2 days after they played their the opener for this final series. But ironically, teams were playing well. Though, as I've told Boss Bomb. There were some questionable plays during the end, and again, Talk and Text couldn't figure out the drive and dish that Ginebra was playing. But I'm still hoping that again the Talk and Text would make the necessary adjustments. Troy Rosario would show up. So if he could play.
Oh man,
It was-
I don't know. Like, thank you for bringing that up. Bieber, earlier you were saying, what were you saying about Troy Rosario earlier?
It's quite evident though. Like if you have the commentators saying the same thing we're saying, then that has to be true. Like it just feels like he never really got over that 0 out of 15 game.
Right.
Because ever since that game, he's just been in a slump.
Yeah.
And early in the game, we thought that he finally slowly got over it when he scored 6
Right.
points in the first 8 minutes. But after that, he had like two like point blank, like really
Yes.
point blank misses. And his reaction after each miss is very telling that he's not confident. Like he either like overshoots it or quickly releases it. So,
Right.
but aside from the Troy Rosario factor, like let's just say I'm not factoring in that in who I would choose before the series started.
Mhm.
Again, it's one of those matchups that seem evenly matched on
Right.
paper and based on how both teams played in the bubble. I don't know if there's a clear favorite. Even the odds makers call it close to even. If I feel like individually, Stock and more talented. However,
Mhm.
because of Jin's, Ginebra's experience, it's still even.
Yeah. Well,
And to Val's point earlier, both teams didn't really have an easy time in the semis, and they looked beatable. So you can't really say that one team played better in the previous series to give them an edge.
right.
So it's definitely going to go down the wire. The only thing I can say is if it ends up being a close game towards the dying minutes, Ginebra will always have the advantage because of their experience, not just the team as a whole, as a collective
Mhm.
unit, not just the players like LA, Japet, and those other guys who've won multiple championships, but of course, their head coach, who's the winningest coach in PBA history,
Right.
compared to Bong Ravenna, who's practically a newbie in this stage, or on this stage, rather.
Right. And
who's the
I
coach,
think
Bieber?
exactly. I think we're not.
Who's the coach?
So
I
so
think you know.
let me Val
Who's
let
the
me
coach of TNT?
let me
I
throw
say
this thing to
Ravenna
you.
because he's technically the coach on
Yes.
paper. That's what they're saying.
He's
Yeah.
he's he's the coach. He's the coach. So we have
Mm.
to put it on him. Mark Dickel, very involved as a consultant. That's what you call an active
Very,
consultant. That's a
very
terminology.
involved.
Look,
Very,
if you
very.
Terminology.
obviously we watched the game earlier, right? You saw those last two plays in regulation. It's like night and day. The contrast is night and day.
Right.
Like after Tolentino made that shot with 5 seconds left, tied ball game, TNT called a timeout. My friends and I already made fun of the play. Like, okay, Ravenna probably doesn't know what to call, so he's just gonna tell Castro to make an ISO play and just do what he needs to do,
Right.
which is exactly what he did. And they
Right.
actually got lucky because LA committed on the steal, but
Yeah.
still,
Right. Well,
it's the
before
layup.
we go, before we go to the last part of the game, I think I have to say that at the very beginning of the game, it essentially set the table for what's gonna happen later in the game because in the very first play after the jump, Stanley Pringle opened up the game with a layup from the get go. Jay Wash, who started, who's been starting for Aram the last few
Made a
games
three.
since the previous, made a
I
three.
wonder why, boss. I wonder why.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
playing
so
more minutes than JP Aram.
yeah. Well, so at
Credit
this
to
point,
him.
yeah, credit to it. At this point, Jay Washington before as a young guy, he had some ego. I mean, we all remember the Petrona novella with those guys.
Well,
Novella.
that's what happens if you're like the rookie of the year or groomed to
Right.
be like the future of the league. It
Right,
gets
and
to your head at such a young
he
age.
was drafted by Talking Text at the time when they still had Dasi Tolava, if you remember that
Mm.
correctly. I think I'm going way back here. I remember an import laden conference with Tolava, Harvey Carey was still
Mark
still
Yeah,
Talan.
Mark
Mark
no,
Talan
Talan
was
because this
Mark
this
Talan
was the
was there.
time. This
Yeah.
was the time when the PBL was legit, like
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah, well
The
told.
PBL teams from before can probably beat these PBA teams now.
Right.
Blackwater, Deep,
Oh yeah.
the Menks,
Yeah.
the Ildefonsos, man, those guys
Yes.
were so good. And
Tanduay.
he was playing great for Magnolia. I think he was like the MVP of that season in the
He
PBL. That's
was
why he was
he w-
Yes.
right.
Jay Wash was a BPC Best Player of the Conference a couple of times when he was with
Yeah.
Twice.
Petron, and they were winning championships. And that was a team that was loaded. They had Chris Lutz there. They had Owen Santos.
Chris Lutz.
And
Shout out to Chris
I'm
Lutz.
going way back here. I was just saying earlier, their import at the time when he was drafted, and they played in the U.S. They had Jay Washington, they had Asi, they got Delan, and they got Damian Cantrell. That guy
Oh,
was
Damon Control.
something else. And at that point in time, Jay Wash, you could see that, gosh, this guy's going to be great. And he didn't turn out to be the way we expected him to be after that Petron year where he almost
Right.
won the MVP. June Mar happened, and then a lot of things happened in the league. But right now, he's at the stage of his career. He knows his limitations. He knows what he's getting, and he makes the most out of it.
He reminds me of a
Um,
Dwight Howard. Just playing
right.
his role
Yeah.
and not
Exactly.
thinking of anything else, not overthinking his role.
Yeah. And before, I remember when he was traded to Global Port the second time. It was crazy when he said that I got guys like Stanley and Terrence that will help me.
Terrence.
Will help me.
Mm.
I was like, help you? What are you talking about? You're not the main guy there, but he's come a long way from that. After being cut by Talking Tex and riding the bench in Rain or Shine, he was like,
Rain or
okay,
shine.
I need to.
Garcia.
Yeah, if I want to stay in the league, I need to make adjustments, and he did. So credit to him. Um, First quarter, the game was pretty tight.
A bit fast
TNT put
paced.
yeah,
TNT space.
right, and then TNT put the half court pressure, which they didn't get a lot of steals, but it gave
Disrupted offense.
Ginebra some pause, and all outside Pringle and Tenorio in the early going. No one was going for Ginebra. Even Scotty Thompson wasn't getting any rebound at
Mm.
that point in time. But just like what Morocco did, TNT did a good job of crowding him early on, and he couldn't get going after the first couple of baskets. Uh, the sequence that you were saying when you the rebounding, I need to go to the PBA website and take a look at that rebounding discrepancy because there's one
Um,
possession.
not just the rebounding discrepancy. For me, the bigger stat is the points in the paint that goes with their
Mhm.
offensive rebounds too. I think the points in the paint was 38 for Talk and Tex and 60. Imagine
Right.
60 for Ginebra. Finals, like, okay, regulation final score was like 80 something, but
Mhm.
60. Wow, it's crazy.
Wow,
Like,
that's
at least five
that's
dunks from
crazy.
Japet, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, 5
Yeah.
dunks.
Speaking
from
of
offensive
Japet,
rebounds, three of them.
speaking of Japet, like we're going individuals here first before we go to the last
Okay.
sequences of the game. What can you say about Japet's game? The entire
Okay, I'll go first.
go on.
Before we no, because before we started, they just showed his stat line. Wow, that's all I can say. 25 points, 16 rebounds. I think half of them are offensive rebounds, and again, dunks after offensive rebounds. So
Mhm.
really momentum plays. And his field goal percentage was 14 out of 9.
Out of 19.
No, like sorry,
No,
12 out
15.
of 16. Yeah, but you guys get the picture.
Right.
Before the series started, the reason why I favored Duck and Tex a little bit talent wise was okay. So let's say Pringle and Parks might cancel each other out. Okay.
Mhm.
So okay, so Castro and
In a
I'm
row.
gonna be I'm gonna say Tenorio. Okay, so you probably give Castro just a slight edge.
Mhm.
You have a Thompson,
Pugoy.
you have a Pogoy, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say I'm gonna be conservative and still make it a tie. You have a Troy, you have
Arrow.
an Aram who can probably contain Japet if they work well
Right.
together, right? But you have the
Right.
Incisos, you have those other guys who can make shots, high octane players. that I would choose over some of the Jinping players. However, the clear mismatch for me, given that Aram hasn't and Troy obviously have not been playing well, is Japet.
Right.
If he plays well and he doesn't do those stupid decisions that he does, he's gonna
Which
be
he
the X
still did.
factor. And
Barbecue chicken.
he's more controlled. No, if you saw his attacks though, like he didn't get as frustrated as he did with Meralco. Like when he
Right.
would seal, and if someone wouldn't pass the ball to him, he'd get frustrated because he'd get the 3 second call. He'd make stupid
Right.
fouls. But earlier he was well composed, and given his
Okay.
stat line, he was really the big difference.
Before I continue on that and pass it on to you, Val, I just want to say hi to some of our friends. You got Jerry, Patrick, Nolan, and even our guy Epom. Epom is wants me to promote Mama Chat special to Teresa. If you're in Cebu, it's amazing. That's all I can say about that. So Epom, you know where I live. You know what to
Baka
do.
naman.
Baka
We're
naman
doing baka
pwede.
naman.
Yeah, but so Japa, I like what you said, Bert. But Val and I, before you dialed in, we were talking about Japet the entire game because Japet, if you take a look at the makeup of the PBA, there are not a lot of players that are close to his height. The last couple of series that they played, the closest people that could match up with
Almazan.
him physically was Almazan and this time Aaron, which both of them were about 6'7", 6'8".
Papa Ray. He couldn't get it. He couldn't
Right.
check Papa Ray.
See, that's my problem with Japet because Japet, from a physicality standpoint, in the PBA, if you compare it to the NBA, just the number of people that he has physical advantage over, he should be coming up with Anthony Davis type numbers,
Numbers. Yeah.
right? But okay, he's not that, of course. I can get that, but the problem with him that I don't really, it's not that I hate Jape, right? Like I think he's indispensable with this team. They won't
Of
win,
course.
but he's
course.
always a head scratcher. And the reason why Pringle and Tenorio and Scotty are having a hard time attacking the basket because he doesn't know where to go in screen and roll situations. He flashes at the wrong time. And I'm telling you, he's the best player of the game right now. He could easily have been the GOAT and not the greatest of all time. He could easily have been the GOAT tonight. So I still think that, to your point,
That's
Bieber,
his
I agree that
basketball IQ.
he's an X factor for Ginebra. If he does
Because
well,
he's okay. Yes, I completely understand and I completely agree with everything that you said. However, given his way of thinking and basketball IQ, that we know that that's the reason why he's not going to be considered or close to being the GOAT in the PBA because
right.
of those things that you mentioned. His poor decision making.
Mm-hmm.
He relies too much on his talent and his athleticism, his gifts, because he knows that he can outjump everyone. He's taller than almost everyone. So he
Right.
can afford to make those mistakes. He's probably thinking that way, that if he's late,
Mm-hmm.
he can out rebound this guy. He can out jump this guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Val, what do you think? Because Biebert and I we're on the same page. I know you don't love Japan as much as we do, and we're killing him right now. So, what do you think, Val?
Yeah, we were talking about the last three plays that got TNT the lead. They were just picking Joppet to be involved with the pick and roll defense, and he made three big mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
First is that he let Jay Washington shoot two straight 3 points that tied the ball game. Yeah, and then they went under
Right.
Jason Castro. Now, if they lost, it's Japet's fault,
Right.
basically. But again,
He made up for it, I guess.
yeah, I
Those
know.
offensive rebounds.
So
Yeah.
I will play devil's advocate here, and I not really, but all I can say. Let's go now to the sequence that you're talking about. This is about, I think, about 3 minutes left in
3
the game.
minutes.
3 minutes left in the game. Pringle
5 points.
Pringle hit a couple of free throws, and then Pringle hit a blow by, and no one could stop him. And then that's the
JP
time
Aram.
that's the time when Japet had his first dunk of the fourth quarter with a pass off of LA, right? And then the next possession, the pick and roll situations, Mark Dickel, okay, Bong Ravenna was headhunting.
Let's be honest,
was headhunting for whoever Japet was defending, and that was Jay Washington, and he hit a couple. He hit a couple.
Big
two straight,
big time.
Two straight threes.
If Stanley Pringle didn't come back with that layup, it would have been tough because Jason Castro hit a go-ahead three with about 36 seconds left, right? So that was something that could have gone a totally different way if Japet failed to catch one of them rebounds. And you know what, Tolentino, like that was a very nice pass from LA.
Yeah,
That
great
was
play.
unbelievable.
Yeah, LA's pass was great. It shows you again his experience in those clutch moments. But for me, that wasn't even the most clutch play. The most clutch play was his pass to
Algin Mariano.
Algin Mariano. Yes, with 4 seconds left
because
in the
Talk
shot
and
clock.
Text decided to play zone.
Right.
Yeah, but again, a great point guard with a lot of experience. That's what you get.
Right.
With Talk and Text, they have a designated set play that they need to follow, and that revolves around someone getting an open three and shooting the three. If it's not an isolation layup, if no one can get a blow by like a Castro or a Parks, that's what they do. And in close games, when the nerves are high, you miss. Case in point, overtime. First 3 minutes, scoreless, 4 3-point attempts.
Yes, but it was there were two varying like questionable plays that Talk and Text didn't do. The last few minutes in the fourth quarter, I never saw Ray Park attempted a shot. Then on overtime,
stupid because he was out.
No, he was out on the OT.
Oh, okay. I mean regulation. Okay.
Yeah. And on the second one, I told Boss Ball that they had like 3 good possessions with a high pick and roll involving Japet Aguilar. They didn't do it in the fourth in the OT. And I was just wondering.
They did it one time, but this time it was not Parks. This is when Parks fouled out. There was Pugoy, and then Washington was in the corner, and then Pugoy called for a screen and roll because it was Japet that was guarding him.
And then
instead of popping, instead of popping, Pugoy went straight to the basket and just gave a couple of fakes, and Japet was nowhere to be found. And like, okay,
with a layup.
Where'd you go, man? So that was still, I think that's still a red flag, guys. I mean, they won game 1, but they never changed their strategy, and it was breaks the game towards the end. So Japet is still going to be headhunted by TNT in the screen and roll situation next game.
But Talk and Text didn't do that one, boss. It worked for them, but in the fourth quarter, they relied more on Jason Castro bailing them out.
So let's do this this time. What do you think are the 3 things that
keys
Talk and Text did well? Let's just start there for now. What do you think are the things that Talk and Text did well? The 3 things, and that they should continue to do that.
First thing is that they got involved. They played more minutes to Jay Washington because they know that Jay Washington could get the looks. Second one is that the rotation was quite fast. You see players in and out because again, this is going to be a long series, and they've been playing like for two straight. This is the second week that they have been playing like on a back-to-back thing.
Right.
So that's what's good for them. I think one more thing is that it's a Talk and Text team, and their offense would always be, bombs away 3-point attempts. So they didn't shoot well in the first half, but they made the adjustments. Hopefully the shots will get in next series. But I think 2 things are needed to be addressed. Of course, the rebounds and the drive and dish, how they can defend the drive and dish of Ginebra.
All right, cool. So that's for talk and text. Bieber, anything that you would want to add about things that they did well that Val didn't mention over there?
It's hard to point out something they did well all throughout the game.
Mhm.
I agree with Val's points, but they need to be consistent. When they were
Okay.
down 9 points and they made that 8-0 run, they played fluidly, but somehow
Right.
they can't consistently do that. Like
Right.
some cases, their offense is too predictable. Like they fall in love with a 3 point shot too much, even if they're not making them. We even talked about this earlier. Like if those shots aren't going in, you can try to adjust by doing like more aggressive cuts, drive and dish, which they were able
Right.
to do for a short period of time in the third quarter when they were down again 9 and they got the lead. But when they had a 14-2 run, once they start making their shots, Ginebra will adjust so they can also be flexible with their offense. But sometimes they're just too predictable because they have a set play in mind and they tend to follow through with that even if it's not effective.
Hmm. Right.
They just need to be consistent. And second, yeah, I like the rotation uh, point that Val mentioned because this is going to be a long series, and I just expect them to have more bodies compared to Ginebra.
Right.
If you ask me, because let's say
That's
I prefer having, let's say, an off the bench guy, even if Troy Osar is not doing well. Someone like him over at Jeff Chan, who is
Alma
not
Masakros will
really
come in. This series loss. Yes.
very conditioned. But there's really not one thing that you can say that they did great. If
Hmm.
there's one, it's in Nebra.
Hmm.
And for me, aside from their, of course, experience, it's their aggressiveness, and that shows in the stat line for the free throws. That
Yeah.
was the glaring stat line in the first quarter. That's why they were able to tie the ball game even if they were down 8 at one time, because their free throw attempts were, I think, 3 times more than talk and
Hmm.
text.
Right. Okay. Well, I agree with you guys. And one thing too that I would like to add on to that is I think talk and text um took care of the ball tonight. They didn't have a lot of turnovers. Let
Turnovers.
me. Okay, so they only had 11, which is amazing. It's a great number
It's
to have.
yeah.
Only had 11 turnovers. The problem was, I think, although it seemed like they had more turnovers, was they had a lot of empty
Gave
possessions.
they
They
gave
had a
them a
lot,
lot of
yeah.
possessions.
They had a lot of empty possessions themselves. The other thing that I think they should do well is to pack the paint when Pringle starts to isolate himself in the perimeter. They did, to your point, Bieber. You're right. They didn't do it consistently. They moved away from it. Um, and the other thing that I would continue doing is to play aggressively, especially at the start of the third. Start of the third quarter it's something that dictates uh, the results of the game for talking text more than it does Ginebra. But they did that today. That's why I was leaning towards them winning it because
Mm,
uh, they took over. They took over, especially the second half of the third quarter
third quarter.
when Park started to really assert himself a little bit more.
Assert
So
himself.
those are the things that I think they should continue. What do you think are the things that Talk and Text should make adjustments on? Val, I'll start with you again.
It should be barbecue chicken for Troy Rosario boss. All matchup wise. I'm not really sure why Taco Tex is not, exploring the possibility of giving the ball to the post to Troy Rosario.
Mm.
I know that he's been struggling, but
I
if
know the answer to that. Not just because he's struggling.
yeah,
He
if,
has
if guys
zero
like
moves. He has zero moves in the post. He muscles
yeah,
people out down low, and I I gotta say, he's bigger. But if you got guys like Algin Mariano, like those guys are strong too, and it
Base. They
kind
have
of
very
throws you,
strong
yeah.
base,
And
so he tries to out jump them.
yep.
if you notice, he even if he does his up and under, he goes back to his right hand with an awkward floater, and
Hope.
then if it's a weird angle,
Oh,
it just doesn't work out.
Mm.
So I I disagree, but go on, Val. Go on, continue.
yeah, I'm just wondering because again, I had high hopes for Aram to be really involved in the top and text offense
Offense.
because yes, offense wise, because before he got traded, Enlex made sure that he got his touches. But here, it's quite obvious that Aram is just here for defensive purposes. And
Right.
you're wondering why. Just think of this. If you have to, if you don't, if you just judge these two players, Jay Washington and Boy Aram, like it's safe to say that if you were the coach, you would give more playing time to
Right.
play Aram. But I don't
Right.
see it right now, and I haven't seen it in the bubble. Though there was a time in the elimination where, there were stories coming out that JP Aram was not happy about his role in talk and text. That's why there was a game where he scored almost 28 points and he became the best player. I thought that that was the start of something, but right after that game, it went back to the whole theory, supported my whole theory that Aram is just there for defensive
Defense,
purposes.
rebounds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let me insert again regarding JP Aram. Like I have a different thought process in that if I was Coach Ravenna or Dickel, I would
Can we just stop mentioning on
Alright.
Coach
I
Von Ravenna?
I would
We
I
had to
would
be
do
we have to be factual, Val.
right. I
You
I
have to stick
have
with the facts,
to
Val.
I would go with
We lose credibility if we don't.
exactly. We're not going to be a
Anyway,
factual
yeah.
podcast if that's the case. So the reason I would, if I was them, I would start Jay Wash over Aram too is if you take a look at the front court of Ginebra, you don't have Greg Slaughter there, and the idea is you would have Aram playing against someone that would replace Japet a few minutes after you come in. So you would have that same advantage the same way that the games, because Aram is not going to be a post player. If you remember when he was with um, Nlex,
And
Blackwater.
Lex.
Nlex,
Mm.
Blackwater, and with the national team in the Asian Games, Coach Yengia would give him crap about being weak in the upper body. It's like you're huge. You should like
Ang
lift
hina
more
mo,
weights.
tinutulak ka na
Yeah,
sa ilalim.
exactly. So he's not that guy. Even against Indonesia earlier in the first window of the FIBA Asia qualifiers, he didn't do well there because he doesn't
Mm.
have the physicality. So he becomes a defensive center by default because of what he can do. He has good moves from time to time against players shorter than him. But
Shorter than him.
if you got a guy like
Japet.
like Japet, even if he's fundamentally not so great defensively,
Yeah.
he's not going to score a lot. So I think
Yep.
the thought process of the TNT coach and not starting him is a sound one. I would go with the same thing. Anything else, Biebert,
Well,
from an adjustment from?
for me, it's not a matter of starting him or even like giving him way more minutes than Jay Wash. I think it's just their system and what they want him to do or contribute offensively. Because at times you can see that he doesn't even know what he should do. Like when he gets the ball from the 3 point line, he fakes, and if he sees that he's open, he takes it. Like
Right.
Are
you
we
don't
talking
you
about his
don't
turnover, boss?
so you don't
He
you
wants to
yeah
drive.
you don't know what is expected of him. That's all I'm saying. Because again, to our points earlier, drive and dish, drive and kick out, or drive and drop,
Mhm.
which actually made them effective for a few spots when they would Castro would probably drive or someone else or Parks would drive and someone would double and he would drop it to Aram
Mhm.
and they were successful that way. So he
Right.
should be more involved
Right.
is what I'm saying. Not
Yeah.
individually offensively, like not
Mhm.
isolating by himself because as we said, he doesn't really have a lot of moves. But if he
Pick and
gets
pop.
like, yeah, pick and pop, if he gets the elbow jumper open, he because he can make those shots as long as he's open and he's in
Right.
rhythm. But
Right.
again, not creating his own shot because he's not that type of player. So
Right.
they should use him more from that perspective, like maybe as a
Right.
decoy, or they can drop the ball to him. But he has to be involved to a point that the defense can't just defense.
Right.
Because that way, if Japet commits to him, then the slashers won't have that shot blocker.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason,
Biggest
like for me, so what I would add on the things that Talk and Tech should make adjustments on is just how the variation of their attack, I guess. They when they do something great, like when they do a pressing defense, and they do it out of the timeout, the first three possessions out of the timeout, it gives Ginebra fits. They really do have a hard time. The thing was, and I don't know what they were seeing. I guess I'm just not seeing it from where I'm from. Is they're changing back to what they were doing prior to them being successful, when Ginebra hasn't figured it out yet. So I think stick with what was working. And this is something that Val and I were talking about earlier. Stick with what's working first. The other thing would be from JP Aram's standpoint. Like, so that you mentioned earlier, Bieber, about JP Aram. I think he should do what we remember when we were doing dribble drive offense before. You're a 5. If you're not comfortable taking threes, go to the dunker spot. Just go to the opposite side of where the ball was being attacked from, and you know where the attack is going to be. Like,
that's
if
exactly
Ray Parks,
my point.
right?
Yes.
If Ray Parks, and he likes to attack left side, not really free throw line extended, but left top of the key, and he would just go back to the middle again. He just does that. So just I my reference are pretty dated, but I could think of AC Green all the time when he was playing with the Lakers. That he was great at that.
Iron Man.
Makes a living of that.
Because if you're Parks, okay, if you're Parks and you know that, okay, I can probably blow by this first line of defense, but if Aram's
Secondary.
out all the way outside and then Japet's still down low, I won't be as confident. And then I see that Aram's open, he's at the 3-point line, so I give the ball to him. And then when Aram gets the ball there,
Bombs
he doesn't
away.
know what he's gonna do, because if he's too open, he's gonna take the shot.
Right.
So that's
Right.
really the thing about Aram. Like, you don't really know what he wants to do, because if you're the defense and he's open from the 3-point line, I would probably give him space too.
Right.
Because I'm sure
Probably,
like 70% of the time he's gonna miss that. If he's gonna make
And-
one, then I'm probably gonna be closer to him. But I'm gonna give him the first shot. I think also that's what happened with Jay Wash. But Jay Wash is
Right.
known to be a 3-pointer. It's just that, he's in the twilight years of his
Right.
career. But he was a shooter before, and he can make those shots. With Aram, he's not known to be a 3-point.
Right.
Like,
And I
we know
appreciate that he has gotten better, but that's where Troy
Yeah.
Rosario should have come in. My other thing that, like, from an adjustment standpoint, is when they play matchup zone,
Yeah.
they should play it throughout the duration of the shot clock, because they do a very good job for 20 seconds and then they miss out, and that's what resulted in that rebounding discrepancy, because they do such a good job of the zone, and they contain Stanley Pringle, they contain penetrations, but they just don't
Except
do
for
it.
the Algin Mariano.
Right. Well, so I think what they I don't know if that's part of their scheme, but the last 5 seconds or 10 seconds, depending on the possession, you should go match up man to man afterwards, so that you have box out assignments, and that didn't happen, and that got killed on the boards. And if they could get back even 5 of those, that
Yep.
could have easily been a TNT win. And
Yeah.
I still do think that TNT has an advantage in this series. And I'm
Yep.
not, just like what we talked about, even when we were playing, I don't like getting too high in wins, and I don't like getting too low in losses. And if there's anything that, for me, I learned today in this game, is Ginebra needs to play above their heads in order for them to win, and TNT
Can afford
TNT
to
has a lot of
not
leeway.
play a very good. Yeah.
They lost in an overtime game after losing by 20 rebounds tonight. So those are the things that because
The free throw attempts.
saying that you want to solve for rebounding, you have to look at the reason why the rebounding discrepancy was huge, and that's really they failed to get their blockout assignments. You know that you don't have it really with a zone. but that's what the matchup zone is. You go back to man the last few seconds of the shot clock, and that didn't happen. All right. So with that being said, what do you guys think of second game? The second game. I don't know when that's going to be. Is that going to be on
Wednesday?
on Tuesday?
Wednesday.
All right. So they have a few games of rest. What do you guys think?
They're back to their usual PBA schedule, the Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
Fridays.
Well, because they can afford to do it that way since it's the finals.
All right. So Ginebra wins this one in overtime. Of course, they're leading 1-0. What are your predictions moving forward? Is Ginebra going to continue and win this title, or do you think TNT would still come out on top? So I'll start. I still do think that TNT is going to win the series. I want Ginebra to win, but I think the TNT is going to win this series. Let me just get that straight. I want Ginebra to win. Straight up.
You want Ginebra to win, or you want Pringle to win?
I want Pringle to win. That's
okay. There you go. There you go. I mean, I want the Lakers to win because I want LeBron to win.
Right. Okay. All right, Val. What do you think? I'll close the Bieber on this prediction round.
Talk and Text will win the second game, but I have a bold prediction, and it's guaranteed.
Okay, guaranteed.
One of
or something?
Yeah, one of the games of this series, I think the Daredevil will be the best player.
All right, that's
a guarantee.
That's a hot take. What is this? 2009 or something?
For a moment, I thought you were gonna say the Devil's gonna play the best player. That's
the only highlight that I saw from him earlier was during the inbounds. That guy's ripped, man.
Yeah. No, but he played well. He played well in the last series, but there were a few games that
I don't even remember that anymore.
He played okay.
All right. Okay. So who do you think is gonna win the title, Val?
Talk and Text. Talk and Text.
Talk and Text 2-0 so far. Bieber, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. With you guys on this. I still feel like this is Talk and Text series or championship to lose, just because they have, to your point, more leeway, and they can make those runs that I don't think Ginebra can if they're down big. So having said that, for Talk and Text to consistently win, they have to set the tone, and they have to be in control of the pace, and they have to be up, because if it's a close game, end game with Ginebra's experience, just like what we saw earlier, Ginebra has the advantage. I will only be concerned if Ginebra wins the second game, then maybe I start thinking twice. But for me, Talk and Text will still win this series.
All right.
Yeah, but I have to warn those who are watching us and listening to us. My picks are the worst. I picked Phoenix and Morocco, and what's worse, I picked Nate Robinson. The Great Robinson.
Man.
Now that's a stupid pick. That's a stupid pick.
That's stupid.
Why will you pick a guy who has no experience, who is like 10 inches reach wise at a disadvantage height wise, like 5 inches, no experience, against a guy who has been training and has a little experience?
One. Jake Paul won.
Oh man.
Yeah, but he's been training for a year.
Yeah,
he knows how to use his reach. That's different. We're talking about boxing.
He's calling out Conor McGregor.
Guys, let's not give Nate Robinson the time of day tonight. I mean, that.
Okay, Val. Remember when we had our predictions and you chose SMB over Morocco, and then you even said you'd be surprised if Morocco would win one game, and I told you.
Yeah, I know, right?
I told you no. I told you no, because Morocco's a better team. San Miguel was playing better. I only gave San Miguel a slight edge because they have a twice to beat advantage. But I told you Morocco could easily win it, which they did in dominant fashion.
Which I guaranteed, Biebert. I guaranteed.
You did guarantee it. And
I'm Phoenix,
I'm telling you,
they were making their shots.
Morocco is close.
Morocco has been playing really well, but I feel bad for them because they just can't seem to win against Ginebra.
Yeah.
Finally, when you thought they could get over the hump with that 3-point lead with 1 minute left, LA's experience came out, and of course we all know the big Scotty 3.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, I still feel like Talk and Text has the slight advantage, just overall picture.
All right. Okay. So that's it for the guys. Everyone picks talking text of this podcast to see what's going to happen. If we're going to be right, that'd be great. If we're wrong, what do I care?
As long as it's a great series, as long as it's a
As
great
long as
series.
we see some good basketball, that's
Yeah.
what's important. And I don't know if you
First game
guys,
finals,
if
overtime, great.
if you guys are going to be available at sometime tomorrow morning, afternoon, or Tuesday afternoon before we go to
Just do it
work.
after the game.
Well, because
I won't be able to. I'm at work.
I really want to talk about the Gilas
Gilas.
team as well, and some NBA stuff. You know, I've been talking about the NBA,
Dwight
Mr.
Ramos.
Villamore.
and I am very excited to talk about the NBA because I think all of the chips are already where they're supposed to be before the start of the season. There'll be a few movements, but
Run
I
it
don't think
back.
that'll be relevant. Yeah, we're gonna run it back.
Run it
Laker
back.
Nation,
Run it back.
we
Run
are
it
going
back.
to be back in the finals. I know it's really early, but we will. We will be.
That is something I guarantee. Not like Val's.
All right. So thank you, fellas. Before we go, let me just do some house cleaning here. So I think that's a wrap for episode 7. And please check out hoopslocale.com for more basketball content, be it NBA, PBA, FIBA, because everything is happening right now. And you can also follow us on our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter. And I got this YouTube thing. I haven't been pushing it yet because I don't know how to do it, but it's there. If you guys want to check it out, it's on YouTube, Hoopslocale. Once again, my name is Bong, and in behalf of Bebert and Val, wherever you are, whoever you are, if you love the game of basketball, you have a home here at hoopslocale.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a good Sunday.